The current dimension is known as the Trad dimension. The moon is similar to Cyanus. This dimension shows what would have resulted if the Leroy that caused the dimension shift never existed. This allowed for the mansion people of Trad to successfully reach the moon and harvest the energy-rich resources from it. The moon was named Citrinus due to the plentiful amount of citrinium located on and within its surface. Citrinium, which is comparable to cyanium from the Trough dimension, is the most powerful resource in the dimension of Trad. Leader of the mansion people in Trad, John Carter, ruled the civilization created on the moon. This civilization was developed with immense energy of citrinium harvested by the central power plant on top of the large citrinium deposit. The civilization rapidly expanded, constructing a massive energy shield around their base for extra protection, along with the additional energy fields protecting every location on the moon. Although John Carter succeeded in controlling the power of citrinium, he wanted more. But with his ever-growing age, John would eventually reach an ending point to his life. John decided to shed his weak flesh and to rebirth into something stronger and unaging. An artificially created organism was developed to be capable of withholding the incredible power of citrinium by having it flow through its veins. This laboratory-born creature would be the vessel of John Carter's mind, allowing him to surpass his old limitations and to ascend into something superior. John transfers his mind and conscience into the creature. John's old body is left to die as his new self awakens. John could no longer be seen as himself. Rather, he was known as DIMO, the Citrinium Abomination. Almost instantly after the creation of DIMO, the ground of the moon shook. A being bursted out from beneath the ground. They were known as Amberon, god of the Trad dimension and guardian of citrinium. Amberon fought against DIMO to stop him from getting any stronger, but it may have already been too late. Even with his creation happening not too long before, DIMO was already extremely powerful because of the citrinium in his veins. The fight between the two lasted a while, but eventually came to an end with DIMO victorious. After DIMO became god of the Trad dimension, he felt what it was like to be truly above those around him. No longer was he the same species or divine status his people were. He was so much more than anything and everything. DIMO went on a rampage to become stronger and more powerful. He followed this bloody road and never looked back. The moon civilization on Centrinius eventually established a new leader in the place of John Carter. The people of the moon base continued to expand, but were losing hope after being abandoned by John Carter. As soon as he became DIMO, it was thought as if all that John did for his people was so that he could attain more power for himself. It had been roughly a decade since the death of Amberon and DIMO's abandonment of the civilization. Since they would not be welcomed, returning to the planet below them was no longer an option. The people had no other choice but to accept their lives the way it was. Why did he do it? Why did DIMO keep escaping, knowing well that his life would either be brought to a quick end by the wrath of Zeroi or prolonged to an endless life of torture and unending escape from Zeroi? But yet, DIMO kept striving to live on. Why? DIMO looked at the moon in the Trad dimension, his home dimension. If only he could tell himself back then to never strive to become as divine as he is now. If only his younger self knew the terrible end that awaited him if he kept following the path he was going down. Through all the deaths and destruction he put others through, and for what? A spot on the divine hierarchy that would just be taken by the next being that thirsted for his blood. DIMO began to cry, something he hadn't done since becoming a god. For the first time in his invaluable existence, he felt worthless. A portal began to open. Zeroi slowly floated out of it. DIMO looked over at Zeroi. Zeroi glanced back. Zeroi charged directly at DIMO. DIMO swung one of his massive arms back at Zeroi. DIMO, himself, no longer understood why he was fighting anymore. Zeroi sluggishly dodged the attack. They were both exhausted by the virtually endless battle between them. Zeroi used up tons of his diminishing energy and went in to attack DIMO. The punch against DIMO's massive arm shattered it. Chunks of the arm flew haphazardly around DIMO and Zeroi. The Zephians residing on one of DIMO's arms still survived, but with the destruction Zeroy was causing, it could be the end of their existence. DIMO looked down at his being. He had a nub of an arm left after Zeroy's attack, along with two deeply fissured arms with their hands demolished, and one last surviving arm that was in no better condition than the rest of them. Zeroy was on the verge of death, his whole body fractured and falling apart in pieces, along with his robotic hand completely destroyed. The two stared at each other, withholding from any combat for the first time in 2 years. Zeroy broke open the containment in his chest, revealing the zeronium crystal inside. It began to glow brighter and brighter. He made no attempt to mask what he was about to do. Zeroy planned to completely sacrifice his body and the zeronium crystal to fire a beam of energy so powerful it would obliterate DIMO in one swift blow. This was the moment he would have to decide: escape and continue this torture, or perish and let Zeroy steal the spot on the divine throne from him. DIMO reached his shaky arm out to open a portal to escape, but hesitated. He looked back down at the moon civilization. The zeronium crystal vaporized into a massive energy blast directed straight towards DIMO. The beam of energy pierced through the god.